Hey guys, James MC Reviews here. Hope you guys are having a happy new year, because I'm gonna be honest, I really am not. 2024 is off to a pretty soul-crushing start. I'm still kind of working through everything, but for the most part, I'm fine, and I'm still gonna keep to my regular video slate, if for no other reason than I need a creative distraction. Anyway, welcome to the first catch-up review of 2024, covering all the movies I watched in December and January. Napoleon is the newest film from Ridley Scott, and while I did enjoy it, I didn't love it as much as I wanted to. The biggest area the film struggles in is how it handles the passage of time. It was very awkwardly paced, and you never get where or when you are without explanation. There are also a lot of things in the story that go underdeveloped or don't get as much attention as they should. This problem will no doubt be fixed in the 4-hour cut going to Apple TV, but I just wish it weren't a problem to begin with. I thought visually it was great. Phoenix's performance was enjoyably over the top. I did have fun with it, but I can't see myself watching it over again. 3.5 out of 5. Saltburn is the newest film by Emerald Fennell, and it's been getting mixed reactions, to say the least. I really liked Promising Young Woman, so I went in kind of excited, and coming out, I was at a loss for words. This is the kind of movie that gets both better and worse as it keeps going, and your enjoyment will depend on your willingness to just embrace a lot of the weird or stupid aspects. I'll give it that I never really knew where it was going right away. The cast was really solid, and the cinematography was well done. This is a really hard one to rank objectively because I know it's not very good, but I did have fun with it. I have it as a 4 right now, but that's subject to change. Leo is the newest film from Netflix and Happy Madison, and okay, could someone please explain to me how the Adam Sandler Lizard movie managed to be more emotionally resonant than the Disney Centennial tribute movie? How did we get to that point? Obviously, it's not perfect. It still has the very Happy Madison style of humor with a lot of bodily fluid jokes, and the third act is kind of zany for the sake of zany, but these are things that I'd come to expect. I thought the story was surprisingly poignant. The advice Leo was giving was genuinely good advice. There were a lot of laugh-out-loud moments. Yeah, I dug this one. 4 out of 5. Godzilla -1. It's pretty cool. I already gave most of my thoughts in my best of the year video, but I did want to talk about 2 issues I had, and there will be some slight spoilers. Firstly, they kind of rushed through Koichi and Noriko's development at the beginning. It's not as noticeable as something like Napoleon, but they do skim over like 3 months in the span of 5 minutes. But the actors are so likable that you're able to buy their connection despite that. Second, I really wish that Noriko stayed dead at the end. Firstly, the physics of the blast were insane. The fact that she was blasted forward and then back along with all the rubble, no human could survive that. But also, I feel like it would have hit harder for Koichi's development if she wasn't revealed to be alive. He spends the second act leading up to the climax wanting to sacrifice himself to stop Godzilla and avenge Noriko, but then finds a new reason to stay alive in looking after Akiko. I think it's a more satisfying, bittersweet ending knowing her death actually meant something. Showing her alive at the end felt kinda cheap. I have heard the argument that after everything he's been through, Koichi deserved a bit of happiness. I can see that for sure, and their connection was so strong that I didn't feel great when she died. I just feel like they should have stuck to it. But like I said, these 2 issues do not ruin the movie. Everything else is just that good. 4 out of 5. Boy and the Heron is the new film from Studio Ghibli, and I really liked it. So much so that I feel bad for nodding off in the middle. I know, I suck. We saw this movie kinda late, and I was already kinda tired. I probably would have nodded off during any movie. Also, the movie has a very serene and relaxing atmosphere. It's almost like a bedtime story. It's a very intricate and interesting world. The animation looks great. Because I saw an early IMAX preview, I saw it subbed, not dubbed, but the cast was still really great. There were a lot of moments, and maybe it's because I was kind of tired, where I wasn't really sure what was happening or why certain decisions were made, but I do feel like that was kind of the point, that it could have multiple meanings. Either way, I still liked it. 4 out of 5. Waitress the Musical was a week-long Fathom event where select theaters were showing a pro shot of the hit Broadway show by Sarah Bareilles. I knew basically nothing about this show going in. I didn't even know that it was a movie first. But my girlfriend wanted to see it, and I was mildly curious, so we watched it.
and it was cute. I can't say it's one of my favorite musicals of all time or anything, but it was charming. It was a very simple and real story. It was the right balance of emotion and humor, and both were really effectively conveyed. Dawn is fucking adorable, and every time it cut back to her and Ogie, I was dying. The acting across the board was very solid. The songs are nice, even if a lot of them kind of sound the same. The pro shot itself was pretty solid. It was well shot and well edited. And yeah, between SpongeBob, Hamilton, and this, I really hope that pro shots of Broadway shows are made readily available with releases like this. In fact, Anne has gone on record saying, if they miraculously release a pro shot of Avenue Q, we're stopping whatever we're doing and watching it. 3.5 out of 5. Die Hard was released in 1988 and stars Bruce Willis as an NYPD cop who becomes the Nakatomi Plaza's last hope when it gets taken over by terrorists. They released this movie in Dolby over the holidays, and initially I was going to do a separate bucket list episode on it, but then other stuff got in the way and I didn't feel like I had enough to say about it. So I figured I'd just talk about it here. But yeah, long story short, this movie was a lot of fun. This movie walked so John Wick and nobody could run. The action is exciting, the story is engaging, the villains are deliciously hammy in the best ways, with the late great Alan Rickman being kind of unrecognizable. The only negative I can think of is just the movie was stretched for HD and it just looked weird. But everything else was a lot of fun. 4 out of 5. Wonka is the newest film from Paul King, detailing the origin of everyone's favorite chocolate-making serial killer. I didn't really expect much out of this movie, and it did start out kind of rough, but it got better and better as it went on. I thought Chalamet was very charming in the role. He brings his own flair to it while still calling back to the different quirks of Wilder. The production design, despite looking very CG, still looks very bright and colorful. The songs were solid for the most part, but much like Waitress, a lot of them just end up sounding the same. Was it an amazing movie? No. But it was fun, heartwarming, and left us with a good feeling leaving the theater. I've got to be honest, after Paddington 2 and this, I would love to see this director take on a Thomas the Tank Engine movie. He had seriously excelled in conveying magic and childlike whimsy. 4 out of 5. Poor Things is the newest film from Yorgos Lanthimos, and not to rehash what I said in my top 10 list, but I really need to watch the rest of this guy's work. I loved The Favorite, and this was even better. It was fun, it was thought-provoking, it was weird, it was dark, it was gorgeous. Please check it out if you haven't already. 4.5 out of 5. Anyone But You is the new rom-com starring Sydney Sweeney and Glenn Powell. I already gave most of my thoughts in my top 10 video. Apparently a lot of people had fun with this one, and good on you, but I just didn't. I was bored out of my skull. 2 out of 5. Aquaman and the Lost Kingdom, directed by James Wan, is a 2-hour Captain Planet PSA starring the King of Atlantis, fucking Aquaman, and acts as the final chapter in the current DCEU. And it was exactly what I figured it would be. Not as horrendous as Flash, but not as strong as something like Blue Beetle. It's just kind of a thing that exists. There were aspects that I liked. I still like Jason Momoa as Aquaman. I liked the reconnection between him and his brother. The action was solid for the most part, and the VFX, while not amazing, at least looked finished. I laughed every time Amber Heard showed up because of how blatantly obvious it was that her scenes were cut. She's in the movie for like 5 minutes combined, and when she shows up, she barely says anything. The movie is paced pretty awkwardly, the story is very forgettable, they completely botched Manta from the first movie. It feels like more of an obligation than a movie. The DCEU was interesting to say the least, and they brought us some pretty awesome moments, but now it's time for the hierarchy of power to change. I look forward to seeing what James Gunn brings to the table, I look forward to seeing how the studio fucks it up, and I can't wait for the whole thing to start over again. 2.5 out of 5. Migration is the newest film from Illumination, and it was a fun way to kill time before our dinner reservations on Christmas. As for the movie itself, it was cute. I thought the flying scenes looked cool, the animation was what you'd expect from Illumination. The cast was pretty solid, Awkwafina didn't annoy me. It had some funny moments, it had its heartfelt moments. 3 out of 5. American Fiction is directed by Cord Jefferson and is the story of a failed writer who runs his newest book through the Ebonics translator and accidentally becomes a hit. Obviously there's more to it than that, and I actually really like that it didn't fall into the Evan Hansen not okay type of liar revealed type story. Or that one episode of Family Guy where Brian writes a trashy self-help book and becomes an asshole. The main character does everything in his power to sabotage himself, and the publishing company is just incredibly ignorant and stupid. This scenario makes for a lot of great comedy that is balanced out by a really touching family drama. The acting across the board was great, it was funny, it was heartfelt, definitely worth a watch. 4 out of 5. The Iron Claw is directed by Sean Durkin and is a biopic about the most famous family in wrestling, the Von Erich. And had I seen this a month earlier, it probably would have taken the number 5 spot on my best of the year video. This movie is fucking devastating. I figured it would just be a standard biopic where you see the rise and the fall of this family, but I did not expect the fall to be a goddamn plummet. When you know nothing about these people going in, it shocks you the turn it takes. It's not a total downer though. There is a lot of heart and charm that comes from these characters. The actors all do great. Zac Efron was so unrecognizable. It's kind of scary. There are a few triumphant and bittersweet moments, and the direction was nice. It was a really great movie, and I'd recommend checking it out. Just be prepared to be broken by the end. 4.5 out of 5. The Color Purple, a musical retelling of the Steven Spielberg classic directed by Blitz Bazawell. I haven't seen the original or the Broadway show, so I don't really have any frame of reference, but judging the movie on its own, it was solid. It was a bit long and drawn out. There were a few songs that didn't impact much, and there were a few spots where it could have ended sooner but didn't. But it was a very charming and impactful story. The characters were all three-dimensional and had good arcs throughout. It had its moments of levity, it had its moments of heart. The heavier moments weren't too forced. Not one of my favorites, but I'm glad I caught it before it left theaters. 3.5 out of 5. Night Swim is the new January horror film by Bryce McGuire about a family who moves into a house with a haunted swimming pool, and it was exactly what I expected it to be. The first two acts are very boring and paint by numbers, and the third act picks up the pace and gets more ridiculous, but overall, it's pretty bad. I thought some of the acting was solid, and I liked the way it played with reflection and used some of the ripple effects in the water, but that's about it. It had all the stock tropes you'd find in a bottom shelf horror movie, and it was just really dumb. 2 out of 5. Mean Girls was released in 2004 and is about a homeschool girl going to real high school for the first time and learning the ins and outs of clique culture. I was going to dedicate a separate bucket list video to this with the 10th anniversary and the new movie coming out, but I don't have much to say about it, so I figured I'd talk about it now. This movie is a very comedic, over-the-top look at high school relationships, popularity contests, drama, cliques, and honestly, watching this movie made me very thankful that my friend groups throughout high school consisted of art students and nerds, because if I had to deal with all the bullshit that the main character deals with in this movie, I would kill myself. The movie is very 2004. It has a very blunt and harsh sense of humor. It has some very quotable lines and goes in directions I didn't always expect. It's definitely not made for me, but I can appreciate it for what it is. 3.5 out of 5. Mean Girls was released in 2024 and is about a homeschool girl going to real high school for the first time and learning the ins and outs of clique culture. Only this time it's a musical. And it sucks. I haven't seen the Broadway show, so maybe there are aspects that play better on stage than in a movie, but if it's anything like what I watched, I highly doubt it. This feels like a Disney Channel movie. In fact, apparently this was supposed to go direct to streaming, and that's kind of where it belongs. The fact that this is in movie theaters at all is kind of embarrassing. Just from the first 10 to 15 minutes, where we see some of the worst green screening of all time, and the lead character's vocal performance, which makes Eric from the live-action Little Mermaid sound absolutely angelic, I knew this was going to be rough. The songs all suck, there was nothing funny going on, the acting was pretty mixed, with some admittedly being better than others, and ironically, for a movie called Mean Girls, I don't think it was mean enough. I know there are things in 2004 that you probably couldn't get away with today, but this version has absolutely no bite and isn't nearly as harsh or honest as the original. I was genuinely not prepared for how annoyed I would be walking out of this movie, and a lot of the positive reception kinda confuses me. I mean, if you liked it, that's awesome. Maybe you got something that I didn't. I just really hated this movie. 1.5 out of 5. The Beekeeper stars Jason Statham, who, as the title suggests, is a beekeeper who goes after members of a corrupt data brokering organization who scam old people out of their money. This movie is so fucking stupid, but I kinda had fun with it. It's one of those movies that just asks you to turn your brain off and not question how an average guy could take out several armed FBI agents so easily, or how that same average man can just casually bring 2 gasoline tanks into a building without being detained immediately. There are stupid elements like that, but the movie kinda knows it's stupid and has fun with it. There are some solid action scenes, although a lot of the best kills are given away in the trailer. Josh Hutcherson as the villain is hilarious. It does kinda go on a bit long, and there were aspects that didn't make sense, but whatever, it was funny. 2.5 out of 5. While working on this video, the 2024 Best Picture nominees were also announced. In the interest of time, I'm not going to do a separate Best Picture Ketchup review this year because I've seen most of the movies and my opinions on them haven't changed much, but I will talk about the 4 nominees that I hadn't seen up until this point. Past Lives was directed by Celine Song and is about 2 childhood friends who reconnect after being out of each other's lives for about 20 years. This was one that I wanted to see in theaters because everyone was talking about how good it was, but unfortunately it passed me by. I'm glad I eventually caught it because it was really sweet and poignant. It's very easy for a movie like this to devolve into cheese, but it actually seemed more interested in commenting on destiny and relationships rather than falling into the stereotypical romantic drama cliches. The 2 actors have great chemistry, the story flows very nicely, the cinematography and music are very pretty. It almost feels like a storybook in a way. I don't think it's going to win, but it's cool to see it nominated. I'd say check it out if you haven't. 4 out of 5. Zone of Interest is directed by Jonathan Glazer and is about the commandant of Auschwitz and his wife trying to build a life for their family in a house next to the camps. I knew nothing about this movie going in, and I think that kind of helped it. This movie feels like it's showing you a very beautiful fragment of a very bleak picture. It's kind of eerie how it's showing this normal-looking suburban family, and when you look in the background, you see barbed wire and smoke, screams and gunshots drowned out by the sound of a pool party. It's kind of disturbing. Everything feels too casual, too calm. I thought the cinematography was great, the use of sound was chilling. I wouldn't call it my favorite out of the nominees, and I don't think I'd watch it again, but I thought it was really good. 4 out of 5. Anatomy of a Fall is directed by Justin Trite and is about a woman put on trial for her husband's murder who has to prove her innocence. Lots of people have this ranked as one of the best movies of last year, and yeah, I liked it too, but I didn't love it as much as I expected to. I think it's an interesting commentary on true crime stories and the legal system and how obsessive these cases can get with the little details. There were some pretty great performances from Sandra Hüller and especially Milo Makata-Graner. I don't think it needed to be 2.5 hours though. Like, I get part of the point is emphasizing how long and drawn out this case is, but you probably still could have gotten that across in under 2 hours. Still a good movie, just not one of my favorites. 3.5 out of 5. Maestro stars and is directed by Bradley Cooper and is about the life and time of Leonard Bernstein. Out of all the Best Picture noms, this was one that I had to force myself to get through because I had no interest in it. I had already heard people saying it wasn't that good, and after watching it, it's exactly what I was expecting. It's an Oscar bait ego flick that is structurally confused and really boring. Sure, it has some alright scenes, some pretty good music, and outside of Bradley Cooper, who sounds like he's doing Rocket Raccoon, doing Alec Baldwin, doing Donald Trump, the rest of the performances were pretty solid. I more so watched this out of obligation, and I was just patiently waiting for it to be over. 2.5 out of 5. And that does it for this video. Let me know in the comments what you've been watching these past couple months, and stay tuned because I've got a very special video coming next week. Thanks, guys.